And also, you know, everyone know that as my first pro fight, now I'm finally gonna make some money. Out of all these years not fighting for no money, you know, it was pretty fighting for no money. It was a stress, you know. It was a little burden because, you know, you're doing all this work fighting. I have over 100 fights, and, you know, competing and financially having problems. You know, I had people like Jimmy Glenn who helped me, who seen a promising future in me, was able to sponsor me and bring me to tournaments that me and my father couldn't get to ourselves. But, you know, I would like to let everyone know that my first purse that I'm making $1,000, and what I'm doing is donating it to Teddy Atlas Foundation. The reason why I'm donating it to him is because I follow the Old Testament, and I'm a religious person, and what happens is when God blesses you with anything, you give, he commands that you give your first fruits to him. So when you give to the poor and needy, you're lending to God. It's in Proverbs 17, chapter 17. I don't know what verse, but any of you want to look, Proverbs chapter 17. And when you give unto the poor, you lend to God, and you get double times. It's not about the double times, but it's about helping God's people. And this is the reason why I'm dedicated. I'm donating my first purse to Teddy Atlas Foundation, is because I want to help people and I want to help God's people.
So with that, going back to Teddy, he started the foundation in 1996. It's a full 501c3 nonprofit foundation. It was established in his father's name, Dr. Theodore A. Atlas Foundation. His father, if any of you have read about him, was a pretty amazing man, providing free health care to people who couldn't pay for their medical care. Even all the way up into his 80s, he was still providing care. In following the Teddy Atlas Foundation, one thing that I know from having founded my own nonprofit foundation is that Teddy's foundation really doesn't have all the bureaucracy that many nonprofit foundations have in terms of trying to help people, the committees that have to be done. And for a lot of nonprofits, by the time they actually help the person, the help is not needed, or the person has died, or all sorts of horrible things happen. But with Teddy's foundation, it's really a phone call. For people who need everything, as Shem mentioned, from food to a wheelchair to making a home handicapped accessible. So nearly every penny that goes to Teddy's foundation actually goes to the people that are being helped. And so for Shem to align himself with Teddy and have Teddy as a role model is a great opportunity for him and truly a blessing in his life. So with that, I'll turn it over to Teddy.
We don't have anybody on the foundation that looks like any of the Kardashians. Very hard to find parking around. I just want to say that I appreciate Samuel for what he's doing, for the donation that he's making to the foundation. We also run a food pantry that feeds 250 families a week. So that donation will in part go to that program too. We also run 2 boxing gyms, one in East Flatbush, Brooklyn, one in Staten Island, in tough areas, in the project areas where boxing is needed to get the kids off the streets and give them something positive in their lives and something with discipline in their lives and something that can give them pride in the proper direction. And we do the things that Samuel talked about, where if there's a family that needs a sick child, whether it's a child with cancer or whatever kind of problem medically they have, we step in and pay for the insurance when the insurance is not covering and the family doesn't have the proper insurance, or we fly the family to where they can get the proper treatment. And we buy the machines that are needed for the quality of life in the child right then. And all our money goes to those things. The thing that I appreciate the most about Shem, I appreciate the donation. The people, more importantly than me, that will receive the help will appreciate it, and they always appreciate it, and they need it. But I appreciate him. I appreciate the person that he is. I appreciate that he's not just giving a token donation, on the day that he's having a press conference that he's turning pro. I appreciate that he has volunteered for programs with the foundation. He volunteered to come to teach in the gym. He's volunteered to come to talk to kids. We do incentive programs where we try to get kids in at-risk schools to give up some of the things on the street, give up some of that attitude, some of the gang-related things, and go to school and give their attendance to school. So what we do as a foundation is we bring several hundred tickets for a lit game or for a net game to the school, and 2 months ahead of time we tell them the kids, there might be 700 kids in the school, the 200 kids that improve their behavior over the next 2 months will get on a list by the teachers, by the principals, by the guidance counselors, and we will supply the buses and they will go on these trips. And it means something for these kids to have somebody that's giving them incentive to improve themselves. Shem wants to be part of that. Shem has gotten involved with a lot of aspects of the foundation. So he's truly put his money where his mouth is. You know, not just the money out of his pocket in his purse, but the money out of his heart, the currency of his character, the currency of his time and effort to be there for these guys and for the programs that we're involved in. Look, Shem is you don't win 5 gold gloves if you don't know how to fight. You know, he can fight inside, he can fight outside, he's got fast hands, he's technically very sound. He has shown plenty of heart inside the ring. He's a southpaw, which is a pain in the neck for opponents on top of everything else. But I think if he wins a world title, and I think he can win a world title, I think it'll be the things we're talking about right now. I think it'll be the character of him that will propel him there. I think that's his greatest asset. I think he's showing that, and again, not because he's given $1,000 only, but because the things that he's done before that, in a quiet way, the things that I've just touched on, and I've only touched on them, the things that he cares about. You know, they got an old saying, 2 heads are better than one, you know. When you're in a situation, you can have 2 things going for you. Well, Shem is the kind of person that, I think one of the rarities about him is that, and the unique thing about him is that he cares for more than just himself. And, you know, it's human condition. I mean, when it comes down to it, people care about themselves. I mean, it's a normal thing. And here's a kid that, in some ways, he cares more about others than he does about himself. And I think when you care more about others than yourself, you care about somebody besides yourself, you're stronger. You're just stronger in whatever you do. Whether it's boxing, whether it's, you know, being a worker, whether it's being a teacher, whatever it happens to be, a baseball player, football player, whatever it happens to be that you choose your vocation in life. When you care about more than yourself, and you're invested in somebody else, and you're responsible, and you actually take that responsibility serious for somebody else, you're bolstered, you're stronger. And I think that's an advantage that he has over other fighters, to be quite frank. And I'll finish it by saying that I remember boxing doesn't have a lot of PR for the good things. You know, all the newspaper, and I think they should be ashamed of themselves. Some of the writers that didn't come out here today, and the ones that have, I applaud them and thank them. But I think some of them, and you could quote me on that, some of them should be ashamed of themselves that they didn't come out here, because you don't have a kid that's involved in something controversial, something that's demeaning to the sport or demeaning to us as human beings. That you don't have somebody that's doing something that's sensational in those kind of aspects, in those kind of negative ways. You have somebody who's just doing something that's not so sensational, but it is sensational. He's doing good things. He's caring about other people. And I think there's a problem when we don't recognize that in the media as much as we recognize somebody biting someone's ear off, or we recognize somebody, you know, going and doing something else that gets everybody's attention and hits all the newspapers in a negative way. I think that this kind of behavior should be recognized and it should be applauded. And I remember some years ago on ESPN, I said that we should all, in this vein that I'm talking about now, that the media should back Juan Diaz. I think and he is a terrific human being. Won a world lightweight title. Had an appealing style. Shem has an appealing style. He has a style that makes for eyeballs to go to wherever he is and have interest in watching him. But I thought Juan Diaz was, as I'm talking about, a real positive role model, a positive influence in the sport that sometimes doesn't get the recognition it needs in those areas. And there's people that conduct themselves in those areas in that kind of way, but again, the media drifts to the more sensational stuff sometimes, and the negative stuff. And I thought that the people with Juan Diaz could have just kind of hooked their wagon up a little bit more to the kind of human being that Juan was. I mean, going to college, there was just so many, he could have been a poster child for so many positive things in boxing that the public needs to know about. And he's done great, Juan Diaz. He's done terrific. But I thought his people could have done just a little more. And I'm not knocking them. They're good people. But they could have done a lot. They could have recognized that and done a little bit more. And I think that Shamil's people have an opportunity here to kind of pick up the ball where it was dropped a little bit in that case and kind of take up that sort of path that I saw for Juan Diaz and be that poster boy for boxing, for all the positive things that are in this sport. I mean, you got a person who has to walk that walk to the ring that seems like it's about 20 miles long, and then those steps that feel like it's Mount Everest. And not to mention the night before that they don't sleep. And, and then get in the ring and do the opposite of what human nature is, to, avoid conflict, to find a way to survive, but to run right into it and to face it in that kind of courageous way and kind of disciplined and sort of prepared way that is very unusual for people to do. I mean, for Christ's sakes, people in their workplaces, sometimes they might walk down the hallway and they believe they're drinking water in a water fountain and let the water run in their mouth for like 5 minutes, when all they're doing is waiting for somebody to pass by that they don't want to face. And here we have a business, we have a sport where they face everything. Things that most people would never face in a lifetime. And I can't say enough for the human being, not the fighter. I've already said enough about the fighter, but the human being that's here. And I think that we should help ourselves by helping him. We should